By mid-1940, Britain stood alone in Western Europe. France had fallen in June. Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg had also surrendered to Germany. Hitler's armies moved quickly, crushing opposition with lightning speed. Across the Channel, the British watched in disbelief. Their allies had vanished. The war now rested on their shoulders. The threat was real. Hitler planned Operation Sea Lion, an invasion of Britain. German forces would cross the English Channel in barges, supported by thousands of planes and artillery. The goal was to defeat the Royal Navy, destroy the RAF, and force Britain to surrender. Every town, every airfield, every port was a potential target. Britain's strength was fragile. The Royal Navy controlled the seas, but the Luftwaffe's air power could break coastal defenses. Fighter Command, led by Air Chief Marshal Sir Hugh Dowding, prepared for the storm. He had under 1,500 fighters, Spitfires and Hurricanes, against over 2,600 German bombers and fighters. Every plane, every pilot, every sortie mattered. Dowding focused on strategy, spacing, and reserves, knowing that numbers alone could not win this fight. Intelligence played a key role. British radar stations along the southern coast detected incoming raids, giving pilots precious minutes to scramble. Observers along the coastline reported sightings. Communication was constant. The country had to respond quickly, or the skies would be lost. The civilians were not safe. London, Coventry, and southern towns were within reach of the Luftwaffe. The German Air Force aimed to destroy morale, disrupt production, and terrorize the population. Schools, factories, and homes were all at risk. Children were evacuated to the countryside, families huddled in shelters, and the nation held its breath each night. Hitler underestimated British resolve. He believed that repeated bombing would break morale. The Luftwaffe focused on airfields first, hoping to cripple Fighter Command. Then they switched to cities in what became the Blitz. The strategy was brutal, calculated, and relentless. Yet Britain adapted. Pilots rotated carefully, anti-aircraft guns targeted incoming planes, and civilians endured the raids with determination. Leadership mattered as much as technology. Dowding trusted his radar network and his intelligence officers. He kept reserves in place, avoiding direct confrontations that could cost too many planes. Squadron leaders flew multiple sorties, often with little rest. Discipline and planning were crucial. Every pilot knew that one mistake could cost a city or a life. Meanwhile, Hitler and the Luftwaffe command underestimated both the British air defense and the resilience of the people. Göring, commander of the Luftwaffe, pushed for mass bombing raids, confident that Britain would falter. But the RAF was nimble, resourceful, and determined. Even with fewer planes, Britain could fight back. By July 1940, the skies over southern England became a battlefield. Airfields, radar stations, and industrial towns faced relentless attacks. Civilians were forced into shelters while the sound of engines and anti-aircraft fire filled the air. The tension was constant. Every raid tested the courage of pilots and citizens alike. This context set the stage for the Battle of Britain. The stakes were high. If Britain fell, Hitler could control Western Europe and threaten the world. If the RAF held, it would prove that courage, strategy, and resilience could stop a seemingly unstoppable force. The struggle was about more than planes and bombs. It was about the survival of a nation. The Luftwaffe was powerful and experienced. German pilots had fought in Poland, France, and the Low Countries. They flew Messerschmitt Bf 109 fighters and Heinkel He 111 and Junkers Ju-87 bombers. Their goal was clear: dominate the skies over southern England, destroy airfields, and crush Britain's morale. Thousands of sorties were planned each week. Every mission carried high risk, but the Germans believed in speed and surprise. Intelligence played a decisive role on both sides. Britain used radar, called chain home, to detect incoming raids up to 120 kilometers away. Operators tracked the number of planes, their altitude, and direction. This gave Fighter Command a crucial advantage. Pilots could be scrambled just in time, intercepting the enemy before bombs reached towns or airfields. Observers along the coast also reported sightings, helping to coordinate responses. Germany, meanwhile, had imperfect information. They underestimated Britain's radar network and the coordination of air defenses. British pilots were outnumbered but highly motivated. Many were young, barely trained, yet brave. They flew multiple missions a day, often returning with damaged planes or injuries. Hurricanes and Spitfires were fast and agile, especially in skilled hands. RAF mechanics worked tirelessly, repairing aircraft, replacing engines, and keeping squadrons ready. Every day, the people behind the pilots made the fight possible. Civilian life was under constant threat. Londoners and residents of southern towns lived with sirens, bombs, and blackouts. Families moved furniture to cover windows. Children slept in shelters, and rationing limited food and fuel. Factories continued producing war materials under the threat of destruction. Schools improvised lessons in cellars. Ordinary people became part of the defense, enduring hardship to maintain normal life. Hitler's strategy shifted during the campaign. Initially, the Luftwaffe focused on RAF airfields and radar stations, hoping to destroy fighter command. When this failed, the Germans turned to bombing cities, in an attempt to break civilian morale. This phase became the Blitz, targeting London and other major towns. Despite fear and destruction, British morale remained strong. Citizens showed resilience, returning to work, helping neighbors, and supporting the war effort in every way they could. Leadership on both sides shaped the battle. Dowding, assisted by his intelligence officers and group commanders, made careful decisions about how to deploy fighters. He rotated squadrons to prevent exhaustion, kept reserves ready, and trusted his radar and observation reports. Göring, overconfident, demanded mass raids, sometimes ignoring the risks of heavy losses. Hitler watched from afar, expecting a quick collapse that never came. Technology mattered more than ever. British radar and the Dowding system allowed fighters to intercept German planes efficiently. Hurricanes were sturdy, effective against bombers. Spitfires were fast, able to match Messerschmitts in dogfights. Anti-aircraft guns protected cities and airfields. Each technological advantage, combined with strategy and human courage, shaped the outcome. By September 1940, the skies over southern England had become a constant battlefield. Hundreds of planes clashed daily. Smoke rose from bombed airfields, towns, and factories. Every pilot, every mechanic, and every civilian contributed to the defense. Britain's survival depended not only on firepower, but on planning, courage, and unity. This context shows why the Battle of Britain mattered. It was not just a fight for territory. It was a test of strategy, technology, leadership, and human endurance. The stakes were immense. If Britain fell, Hitler could invade Western Europe, changing the course of the war. If Britain held, it would show that courage and resilience could defy even the most powerful enemy. The first angle is human cost. The Battle of Britain was fought not only in the skies, but also on the ground, among ordinary people. Civilians endured relentless bombings. London, Coventry, and other southern towns faced attacks almost daily. Families ran to shelters at the sound of sirens. Children huddled with their parents in underground stations. Homes were destroyed. Schools, hospitals, and factories were damaged. Thousands of civilians were killed or injured. Yet, despite fear and loss, people returned to their routines. They worked, helped neighbors, and supported the war effort. This courage and resilience became a key part of Britain's defense. The second angle is leadership. Air Chief Marshal Sir Hugh Dowding led fighter command with precision. He understood that the RAF could not match the Luftwaffe in sheer numbers, so strategy was vital. Dowding trusted radar intelligence and observation posts to deploy fighters efficiently. He rotated squadrons to prevent exhaustion and kept reserves ready for emergencies. His leadership emphasized patience, planning, and flexibility. Without his careful coordination, the RAF might have been overwhelmed. Dowding's decisions shaped every engagement and gave Britain a fighting chance against a superior force. The third angle is RAF strategy and technology. Fighter command relied on Hurricanes and Spitfires to intercept German bombers. Hurricanes were sturdy, able to take damage and still fight effectively. Spitfires were fast and agile, excellent for dogfights with Messerschmitt Bf 109s. Radar technology, known as the chain home system, detected incoming aircraft over the channel, giving pilots time to scramble. Anti-aircraft guns targeted enemy planes approaching towns and airfields. The combination of technology, strategy, and skilled pilots allowed the RAF to punch above its weight. Intelligence and communication were crucial. Observers, ground crews, and pilots worked together seamlessly. Every mission was planned carefully, every sortie counted. The fourth angle is enemy perspective. The Luftwaffe believed Britain would fall quickly. They had air superiority over France and expected that repeated bombing would crush morale. German pilots were experienced and confident. Messerschmitts, Heinkels, and Junkers flew in formations designed to overwhelm defenses. Yet, the Luftwaffe underestimated British radar, strategy, and the resolve of pilots and civilians. Their mistakes, attacking cities instead of airfields, underestimating reserves, allowed the RAF to recover and maintain strength. The Germans learned that Britain was not easy to break, and the human cost of every raid was higher than anticipated. Each of these perspectives shows the complexity of the battle. Courage, leadership, technology, and strategic errors all shaped the outcome. Civilians faced terror and destruction. Pilots fought in the skies with determination. Leaders planned and adapted to changing circumstances. And the enemy, confident at first, discovered that even the mightiest force could be stopped by strategy and resilience. The fifth angle is moral and strategic consequences. Hitler hoped that bombing Britain's cities would break the will of the people and force a surrender. He believed terror could win the war without a full invasion. But the strategy failed. Civilians endured the raids, kept working, and supported the military effort. Their resilience proved that morale could not be destroyed by fear alone. Strategically, Britain's survival forced Hitler to delay Operation Sea Lion, the planned invasion of the UK. The failure of the Luftwaffe to gain air superiority changed the course of the war. This battle demonstrated that the morale and courage of ordinary citizens could be as decisive as military strength. The sixth angle is civilian resilience and unity. Life continued even under constant threat. Schools operated in basements, factories produced weapons under the roar of explosions, and volunteers assisted firefighters and medical teams during raids. Communities shared resources, comforted the wounded, and rebuilt damaged homes. Londoners adapted to blackout restrictions, rationing, and daily alarms. Their determination sent a clear message: Britain would not surrender. This civilian endurance supported the RAF in every possible way. It created a strong sense of national unity, proving that courage on the ground matched bravery in the skies. Another perspective is the coordination and skill of pilots. Young men from Britain, Canada, Poland, and other countries joined the RAF. Many were inexperienced but trained quickly under extreme pressure. Pilots flew multiple sorties daily, often with minimal rest. They faced Messerschmitts, anti-aircraft fire, and the constant threat of death. Every dogfight demanded precision, skill, and courage. These pilots became the frontline defenders of Britain. Their actions were decisive in preventing Germany from gaining air supremacy. Finally, the role of technology in shaping outcomes cannot be overstated. Radar stations detected enemy planes far in advance. Ground crews repaired aircraft with speed and skill. Communication networks coordinated pilots, anti-aircraft guns, and observation posts. The combination of technology, intelligence, and human effort multiplied Britain's defensive capability. Without these tools, the RAF could not have resisted the Luftwaffe so effectively. Each perspective shows the depth of the battle. It was not just about planes in the sky. It was about people, strategy, technology, leadership, and courage. Civilians endured destruction with dignity. Pilots risked their lives daily. Leaders made calculated decisions that saved the nation. Even the enemy learned that Britain's strength lay in unity, resilience, and resolve. The Battle of Britain was more than a military engagement. It was a test of human courage, strategy, and national spirit. Every action, from the planning rooms of Fighter Command to the streets of London, shaped the outcome. The determination of civilians and the skill of pilots combined to prevent invasion and preserve Britain's independence. September 15, 1940. The day would become known as Battle of Britain Day. From dawn, the skies over southern England were alive with engines and anticipation. The Luftwaffe launched its largest attack yet. Hundreds of bombers, escorted by fighters, crossed the Channel, heading for London and nearby airfields. Every RAF radar station alerted Fighter Command. Pilots scrambled immediately, climbing into the clouds to meet the enemy. The roar of Spitfires and Hurricanes filled the morning sky. German bombers flew in tight formations, their mission clear: destroy the RAF and terrorize the city below. Anti-aircraft guns rattled from towns and airfields, sending flak into the sky. Explosions shook the ground as the first bombs fell, setting buildings alight. Smoke curled upward, a dark signal across the horizon. RAF pilots fought with determination. They intercepted bomber formations over Kent and Essex, engaging Messerschmitts in intense dogfights. Hurricanes focused on bombers, while Spitfires targeted the escorting fighters. Every engagement was chaotic and dangerous. Pilots relied on skill, instinct, and coordination. Many were young, some just 19 or 20, yet they held the line against overwhelming odds. Throughout the day, Londoners took shelter, listening to the roar of engines, the whistling of falling bombs, and the rattle of anti-aircraft guns. Fires burned, windows shattered, yet the city endured. Civilians rushed to help firefighters and rescue teams. Despite the destruction, morale remained strong. The determination to resist was visible in every street and underground station. Dowding's strategy proved decisive. He kept reserves ready, rotating squadrons to prevent exhaustion. Pilots were sent where they were needed most, guided by radar and ground reports. This coordination allowed the RAF to inflict significant losses on the Luftwaffe. By mid-afternoon, German bombers were retreating, leaving a trail of destroyed planes and pilots forced to parachute into fields. The Luftwaffe underestimated British resilience and coordination. Goring had hoped that repeated bombing would break RAF airfields and morale. Instead, RAF squadrons recovered quickly, returning to battle after repairs. German losses were high. Many experienced pilots were killed or captured. Bombers damaged or destroyed meant fewer attacks in the coming days. By evening, the sky cleared, but the cost was visible on the ground. Fires burned in East London, homes and factories were damaged, and first responders worked tirelessly. Yet, the British had held their ground. Fighter command had prevented the Luftwaffe from achieving air superiority. Civilians and soldiers alike understood the significance. Britain had survived the largest attack yet. This day marked a turning point. The Luftwaffe could not maintain constant pressure without unacceptable losses. Hitler's plan to force Britain into surrender had failed. Pilots, anti-aircraft crews, and civilians had all played a role in the defense. Coordination, courage, and technology combined to resist one of the most powerful air forces in the world. The events of September 15 showed that determination and skill could overcome numerical superiority. It was a moment when the courage of a few pilots and the resolve of an entire nation collided with the might of a global power. London had refused to surrender. After September 15, 1940, the Luftwaffe tried to regroup and continue their attacks. Large raids continued over London, Portsmouth, and other southern cities. Bombers flew in tight formations, escorted by fighters, aiming to overwhelm the RAF. Each day brought more danger, more smoke, and more destruction. But the RAF had learned and adapted. Pilots flew with increasing skill and confidence. Ground crews repaired damaged planes rapidly, keeping squadrons in the air. Radar stations continued to detect incoming raids, allowing fighter command to respond efficiently. Dowding's strategy of maintaining reserves, rotating squadrons, and focusing attacks on bombers rather than fighters proved its worth. German losses mounted. Experienced pilots were killed or captured. Bombers were destroyed before they could reach their targets. Even when German planes reached cities, anti-aircraft fire and fighter interceptions forced them to retreat. The Luftwaffe could not gain air superiority. Without control of the skies, Hitler's plan for Operation Sea Lion, the invasion of Britain, was impossible. Civilians endured the continued bombing with courage. Firefighters and rescue teams worked through the night. Hospitals overflowed with wounded, yet communities remained united. Children were evacuated from the most dangerous areas, and citizens adapted to blackout restrictions. London's spirit was unbroken. By October 1940, the pattern was clear. The Luftwaffe had failed to destroy fighter command or break civilian morale. German commanders recognized that losses were unsustainable. Hitler postponed the invasion indefinitely. Britain had survived a direct threat of conquest. Fighter command, supported by the resilience of civilians and the skill of mechanics and observers, had won the aerial battle. The failure of the Luftwaffe marked a decisive moment in World War II. It was the first time Hitler's military plans had been stopped by determination, skill, and coordination rather than numbers alone. Britain remained a base of resistance, a symbol of defiance, and a launch point for future Allied operations. The courage of pilots from Britain, Poland, Canada, and other nations, combined with civilian endurance, shaped the outcome. Technology, including radar, Spitfires, Hurricanes, and communication systems, gave Britain a fighting edge. Leadership and strategy ensured every plane and pilot was used effectively. Every decision mattered, every mission counted. The Battle of Britain was more than a clash of planes. It was a test of national will, planning, and courage. The Luftwaffe's failure demonstrated that even the most powerful force could be resisted when strategy, technology, and human determination aligned. London and southern England had refused to surrender, setting the stage for the continued fight against Nazi Germany. The skies had finally quieted. Smoke still rose from bombed-out buildings, but the roar of engines had faded. London and southern England were scarred. Streets were filled with rubble. Homes, schools, and factories had been destroyed or damaged. Fires smoldered in neighborhoods. Hospitals were overwhelmed with wounded civilians. Yet, despite the destruction, the city remained alive. People returned to their routines, clearing debris, helping neighbors, and rebuilding what they could. Casualties were high. Estimates suggest that between July and October 1940, around 43,000 civilians were killed and over 139,000 were injured in Britain. Thousands of homes were destroyed, leaving families displaced. Airfields and aircraft were also lost. The RAF lost over 1,500 aircraft, while the Luftwaffe lost more than 1,700 planes, including fighters and bombers. Pilots, mechanics, and anti-aircraft crews suffered fatigue and stress, yet continued their work without pause. The psychological impact was profound. Citizens lived with the constant threat of bombs, yet their courage inspired the nation. The concept of Blitz spirit emerged, resilience, solidarity, and determination in the face of terror. Children continued schooling in basements. Workers rebuilt factories, and firefighters and medical teams worked tirelessly. The British people showed that survival was possible even under relentless pressure. Strategically, the battle had immense significance. The Luftwaffe failed to achieve air superiority. Hitler's plan for Operation Sea Lion, the invasion of Britain, could not proceed. The RAF remained a formidable defensive force. Britain's survival gave hope to Allied nations and showed that Nazi Germany could be resisted. The battle demonstrated the effectiveness of radar, air tactics, and careful planning. Every pilot, every civilian, and every piece of technology played a role in keeping Britain free. The aftermath also highlighted the importance of leadership. Dowding and his commanders had made crucial decisions in deploying fighters and reserves. German commanders realized that mistakes, attacking cities instead of airfields, underestimating intelligence, and overestimating their own strength, had cost them the battle. Britain's leadership, combined with civilian and military resilience, had turned the tide. The Battle of Britain left lasting scars on the country. Physical destruction was immense, and the human cost was tragic. Yet it also created a sense of unity, pride, and determination. People remembered the day when London refused to surrender, and it became a symbol of defiance that inspired the rest of the war. The Battle of Britain had changed the course of the war. Hitler's plan to invade Britain, Operation Sea Lion, was postponed indefinitely. The Luftwaffe had failed to destroy fighter command, and German losses were severe. Over 1,700 planes had been lost, including experienced pilots who could not be easily replaced. The failure exposed weaknesses in Germany's strategy and marked the first major setback for Hitler's forces. Britain's victory had a broader impact. The survival of the United Kingdom preserved a base for Allied operations. From these islands, Britain could continue to fight, organize resources, and coordinate with other nations resisting Nazi Germany. The battle demonstrated that a well-prepared, determined nation could resist even a superior enemy. The resilience of pilots, ground crews, and civilians became a symbol of hope for occupied countries across Europe. Historical assessments emphasize leadership and strategy as decisive factors. Air Chief Marshal Dowding's careful planning, including the use of radar, pilot rotation, and reserve squadrons, ensured that the RAF could respond effectively to German raids. Conversely, German leadership miscalculated. Göring insisted on mass attacks and underestimated Britain's defenses. Hitler expected London to surrender after terror bombing, but found the population resilient and the RAF undefeated. The battle also highlighted the role of technology. Radar, Spitfires, Hurricanes, and anti-aircraft guns proved critical. British communication networks allowed rapid coordination between pilots, observation posts, and command centers. The combination of technology, human skill, and strategy gave Britain a defensive advantage that compensated for being outnumbered. Beyond military strategy, the battle left an enduring mark on public memory. Citizens had endured months of bombing, yet they demonstrated courage, adaptability, and solidarity. The Blitz spirit became a defining feature of British identity during World War II. Even children who had slept in shelters, factories that continued producing weapons, and volunteers who aided firefighters all contributed to the nation's survival. The Battle of Britain was the first major defeat for Hitler's forces. It forced him to reconsider his plans for Western Europe and shifted the momentum in favor of the Allies. Winston Churchill, Britain's Prime Minister, captured the significance when he said, "Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few." The few referred to the RAF pilots whose courage had protected the nation. By the end of 1940, Britain had endured a terrifying challenge and survived. Physical destruction, casualties, and fear were immense, but the nation remained free. Hitler's ambition to conquer the British Isles had been stopped, and the stage was set for a long struggle that would continue for years. The Battle of Britain proved that courage, planning, technology, and resilience could resist even the most powerful forces in the world. The Battle of Britain was more than a fight between planes. It was a test of courage, strategy, and determination. Pilots soared into the skies, risking their lives against a powerful enemy. Civilians endured destruction, fear, and loss, yet they remained steadfast. Every person played a role, from mechanics repairing planes to volunteers helping the wounded. Together, they created a defense that could not be broken. Leadership and planning proved decisive. Air Chief Marshal Dowding's careful use of radar, reserves, and fighter rotation allowed Britain to fight efficiently. German commanders underestimated these advantages. Hitler's expectation that terror and numbers alone would force surrender failed. The battle showed that strategy, coordination, and intelligence could outweigh brute force. Technology shaped the outcome. Spitfires and Hurricanes held the skies, while radar detected incoming raids. Anti-aircraft guns and communication networks multiplied the effectiveness of every effort. Innovation, skill, and courage combined to defend a nation. The human spirit defined the battle. London and southern England faced devastation, yet the people did not give in. Their resilience became a symbol for the world. The Blitz spirit showed that ordinary citizens could meet extraordinary challenges with courage and unity. This spirit, paired with skilled pilots and strong leadership, ensured Britain's survival. The Battle of Britain changed the course of World War II. Hitler's plan to conquer Britain failed. The United Kingdom remained free, serving as a base for future Allied operations. The battle proved that even against overwhelming odds, determination, strategy, and courage could resist the mightiest forces. History remembers the day London refused to surrender as a turning point. It was a moment when bravery in the skies and resilience on the ground combined to defend freedom. The Battle of Britain remains a testament to the power of human courage, the importance of leadership, and the enduring spirit of a nation that refused to yield.